So this is a lecture about Mindwheel. It was one of the very first text adventures, and it was created in 1984. The particulars of this game is that in addition to being released in 1984, it was a DOS game. It was released in the United States. It was a puzzle-solving, real-time interactive fiction, and it was developed by Synapse. So it was Synapse's last game. And it was also its most ambitious. Mindwheel unfortunately ends up as an ideal example of a great concept that some people thought was horrendously botched by frustrating puzzles and that are not illogical, but are poorly integrated with the storyline. So at its most basic level, the game is about telepathy. You time travel into the kaleidoscopic minds of four geniuses. You will encounter the cave master, inspired father of the primary visions, retrieve the wheel of wisdom, civilization's one key to salvation, and witness some of the most crucial moments in history. Most of the game's puzzles revolve around finding words to complete various sonnets posed by different characters and answering obscure riddles. The problem is that it is often almost impossible to know if you have found the right word and why. Worse still, some words are written only in the manual that comes with the game, with almost no clue to the effect. The parser is decent, although its range of synonyms are very limited. For example, in one case, it will only understand lady, but not woman. So it was written, the narrative part anyways, was written by Robert Pinsky. In 1984, he was a young guy, and this is what he currently looks like. So Robert Pinsky is a poet, essayist, translator, teacher, and speaker. His first 2 terms as United States Poet Laureate were marked by such visible dynamism, that such national enthusiasm and response, that the Library of Congress appointed him to an unprecedented 3rd term. Throughout his career, Pinsky has been dedicated to identifying and invigorating poetry's place in the world. So he's known worldwide, and his work has earned him awards all over the world, and there's too many to actually list. So Pinsky is a professor of English at Boston University. He is still teaching, still writing, and in 2015, the university named him William Fairfield Warren Distinguished Professor. This is one of the highest honors bestowed upon senior faculty members who are actively involved in teaching, research, scholarship, and university civic life. This is another book that he wrote that I think would be helpful to anyone who's interested in storytelling. I don't teach out of it for this particular class, but I wanted you to know that it was there. So the cover of Mindwheel looks like this. This is from an interview, Mindwheel, which, as Pinsky told me recently over email, he is still proud of. I look on it as a part of my life's work in writing, he said. So the co-founder of the company told him that he had an idea for a narrative experiment. He wanted to get a novelist, a playwright, and a poet to each write a text adventure to see what these different types of writer would separately bring to the form. So Pinsky was happy to receive the invitation, attracted to both the novelty of the project and the challenge of writing for a broader audience. So the game was supposed to be something highbrow. Pinsky has said, an electronic novel. While he liked the idea that it was entertainment, that it was also a game. So Pinsky came to enjoy working with his programming collaborators. Both men, he said, possess an acute and practical, deep sense of action as a movement of the soul. So the resulting product, which thanks to Hells you can still play for free, is a playful mishmash of sci-fi tropes, pop surrealism, and illusions both high and low. The work of a poet having fun, but still the work of a poet. So, ludere means to play. After all, Pinsky points out, illusion and ludicrous both come from the Latin ludere, meaning to play. So there are two components. There is the book. It's a rare book now. I think it costs like $100. I bought it years and years ago for like, $5. But now people have come to recognize it as something a little bit more valuable, and people are keeping these and collecting them. And also the software. And when you load the software, it looks like this. The book explains the futuristic, near-apocalyptic setting of Mindwheel, freeing up the game to begin swiftly with the player lying face up on a table in a stark laboratory. Someone called Dr. Vigil asks, "Are you ready to begin your journey?" If you are, he flicks a row of circuit breakers, and you awake on an immense stage, backed by a chorus of singers in front of a roaring crowd. You are inside the mind of the rock star Bobby Clemon, and you watch, or rather, as with all of us, the text tells you that you watch, as his assassination plays repeatedly on an enormous video screen. You're given no further instructions. The game has a dreamlike logic. The fun has as much to do with the working out what to do next as how to do it. Later, you explore the mindscape of a poet, which takes the form of a sleazy bar full of fornicating insects, and that of a dictator clearly modeled on Hitler, which is populated by murderous children, uniformed lizards, and winged people locked in an internment camp. The fourth and final mind that you explore belongs to an Einstein-like scientist, and there the imagery draws heavily on Alice in Wonderland. Tragedy and farce mingle freely. So, as computers have advanced and graphics became easier and less expensive to create, text adventures died as a commercial proposition. Pinsky never wrote another piece of interactive fiction, although he continued to think about poetry and computers, examining the interesting infancy of their relationship and the particular genius inherent to both mediums. In The Muse and the Machine, or Poetics of Zork, a short essay he wrote was in the Times in 1995. So this essay, he says this, it says, "I believe that the Poetics of Zork and its modern descendants tell us more about the literary potential of the computer than we could learn from any amount of ambitious literary theorizing." At the beginning of Zork, the player-reader faces a small empty house on a barren plain, a visible territory that can be walked over by entering a handful of keyboard commands. But after looking under the carpet and opening the trapdoor and descending and entering the tunnel, then one sees the world of Zork unfold outward into an immense network of concentric chambers, looping passageways, branching and terraced corridors. Zork kept me alive. The map of this monstrous universe was itself gigantic. Primitive though this world was, it would become absorbing, even transporting. A successful artist recently said to me, meaning Pinsky, looking back on a time of great psychological stress, "Zork kept me alive." So what this teaches us, according to Pinsky, is that all art is imitation, and what this entertainment imitates with its vast systemic galaxy of possibility opening up from the bland little starting point is the computer itself. He thinks that the computer, like everything else we make, is in part a self-portrait. It smells of our human souls. is a secret passage from little to much. So, much and little is a concept I want you guys to really begin to understand. This opening up, the discovery of much and little, seems to be a fundamental resonance of the human intelligence. And this is why I have you start with your premise. I want you to understand what your much is and how little it takes to actually talk about how big the human experience really is. So this fascination with the tremendous volume that can be stored in a tiny space is an essential element of our pleasure in lyric poetry. And a good example of this is this story by John McCutcheon called The Red Corvette, and we'll experience that later on in our assignments. The story structure of Mindwheel is circular loops arranged dendritically, and a particular echo of the word circuit or charts of narrative motion are often involved in circular loops arranged dendritically. This idea of the circle may have affected my literary borrowing, he says. A dendrite, if you look it up, is any of the short branched thread-like extensions of a nerve cell, which conduct impulses towards the cell body. Or another definition is a crystal that has branched during growth and has a tree-like form. So as an exercise, I'd like you to each draw what this looks like, and then scan it and upload it to the appropriate assignment. It will be something you turn in. So these are the 4 areas of Mindwheel. We have Bobby Clemon, the murdered rock star. The area is stage, music, has thugs. The poet, a famous poet who died of love for a cruel death. You pick up the toad, you talk to the glass woman, you go to the love room, write poetry, and then you go back to Bobby's mind when it's all done and the stage is empty when you get there. Then you have Generalissimo, a dictator and war criminal. That's where the winged woman and the petrified soldier are being held captive. You solve the riddle and turn blood into water to unpetrify the soldier, grow wings, and you are dropped off in Eva Find's mind. So Dr. Eva Find is a famous scientist and developer of a cruel weapon. It's the most complicated world. You must collect the parts and create a violin, play it, and sacrifice the toad, and get to the cave master. The cave master gives you the wheel, and you put it on the disc and save the world.